Welcome to Vertical MRO with yours truly as the host, Val Medved, co-hosting with me, Mr. John Gray of Hangar Z. In this 2-episode interview, we have the privilege of shining a spotlight onto one of many unsung heroes of our industry. That's right, maintenance technicians. They are the backbone of our aviation industry, ensuring the safety and reliability of aircraft day in, day out. Today, I'm extremely excited to introduce Faith Ortega, a prominent figure in the maintenance technician community, known to many through her social media platform as How to Helicopter. Faith's journey into aviation maintenance began at Southern Illinois University, renowned for its outstanding aviation program. There, she earned her Bachelor of Applied Science degree in Aviation Technologies with a specialization in helicopters, culminating in her A&P certification. For those who are unfamiliar with the intricacies of a maintenance technician role, the A&P certification signifies expertise in maintaining, repairing aircraft, airframes, engines, and related systems. On the other hand, the IA, the Inspection Authorization, represents a higher level of certification, granting the authority to approve annual inspections and sign off on major repairs and alterations, which Faith is now approved and was recently certified to do so. Congratulations. She's with Air Evac doing it. She embarked on her career as an A&P at Helicopters Inc., where she immersed herself in the ENG, electronic news gathering industry, gaining invaluable experience. Transitioning to the public safety aviation sector, Faith now serves as a HEMS, or Helicopter Emergency Medical Services, base mechanic, contributing to critical missions that save lives. Beyond her professional endeavors, Faith is a passionate advocate for maintenance technician community. Through her social media platform, which she's on quite often, she highlights the vital work of technicians and actively engages in recruiting the next generation of talent. Additionally, Faith generously volunteers her time at Gateway Youth Aeronautical Foundation, nurturing aspiring aviators and young minds. Join us as we delve into Faith's inspiring journey, her contributions to maintenance technician field, and her dedication to shaping the future of aviation. This is Vertical MRO. Special thanks going out to our sponsors, Bell and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
You're on the right path, though. It's everything that I've seen so far. And kind of watching your last post here, what was your take of the West Coast side of the Verticon? Because I know this you mentioned this was your first one. What did you think of that side of the countries?
I was curious to see, because I've been to Atlanta and I've been to Dallas back and forth a couple times. So I've been to 4 or 5 now in total. And this was my first one ever that wasn't at those 2 locations. And I was so excited to see how many international folks came.
Yeah.
I've always liked to see how aviation, especially helicopter aviation, is showcased in their countries. I'll tell you, the Aussies showed out this year, man. I feel like everybody I talked to was Australian. Like everywhere I turned, if I was waiting in line at one of the restaurants or to grab a drink or whatever, like I feel like a ton of people, it was cool, because my experience has always been, I went to one pre-COVID. It sucks we have to date everything with COVID anymore, but I went to one pre-COVID, and it was in Atlanta at the time, and it was pretty big. And then the other 2 or 3 I've been to were post-COVID, but this has been the only one that really, I feel like, the international folks showed out. So it was really cool to see and to be able to talk with them. They're like, oh, we were finally able to make it here. And I don't know, I feel like this year was huge. I don't know what you guys think, but compared to the last couple of years, I was like, my God, I don't think I'm going to have time to talk or meet with everybody like normal. So,
and Anaheim's a great location too, just like you say, because the Aussies and the Kiwis, it's one flight from whether you're coming from New Zealand or from Brisbane or Sydney. It's one flight for them versus jumping across, getting into Dallas. Dallas isn't so bad. I know they have some more international flights available to them, but when you get to Atlanta on the East Coast, that's a long day of travel. So yeah, you're right. There was a fair amount of Aussies and Kiwis there. They were well represented.
What was your takeaway, Val, on the show itself? Because you were at the booth and you saw the traffic. I mean, going through the whole time.
It was probably one of my best ones, just for sheer volume quality. Because with my career there, we were talking with operators that were kind of wanting to upgrade their drive shafts and drive trains. So we had a lot of conversations going in that direction. So to that, and then kind of having the exposure of kind of what we talked about earlier here, the part shortages here, because where I work as well, we have that. And so now all of a sudden, when a PMA company has these parts, we're no longer kind of the Antichrist anymore. We're like, oh, we're going to look at you now too, just because you have the parts. So it was busy, and that's kind of what you want, right? It's at the end of the day where you're sitting there, you're drinking, hot water just to kind of cure the throat because of how much talking you've done, and it's gargling almost salt water at the end of it. I don't know. What about for you? Because I know you were at the booth quite a bit, and it was steady traffic there on your side, John.
So man, it was awesome being at Vertical. Their booth is absolutely amazing. To have the podcast booth back there was really cool. But there was, for Vertical HeliCASTS, we're sharing the booth, and so when we weren't recording, we're out trying to do some different things. And I felt like every 10 feet, and I know both of you feel this way, every 10 feet you run into somebody, and you stop and talk, and your goal is to get to point B, and you get nowhere, so we get diverted about 50 times, which is great. That's the reason why you go there. On the Hangar Z podcast, we talk about the benefits of the associations, the conferences, in my opinion, is networking, education, and training. And I think that's how you propel your career, by kind of addressing all three of those things. And you brought the professional education that's offered there. For the law enforcement side, they had a TFO tactics course, tactical flight officer tactics course taught by Clay Lacey. And I got to pop my head in there, and I'm like, man, it's really cool that they're kind of branching out and offering more professional education, because, when you can combine those three things at one place, it's such a great place to be. So I loved it. And like both of you said, I think it was a really, really successful show. I think everybody I talked to said it was the best they'd seen. So it was great.
I think from going this forward, I think I want to get a t-shirt that just says because when I got to the meet and greet there, I was like, so you're the Val? I'm like, I guess I'm the Val.
The Val.
The Val.
Yeah. The meet and greet was awesome. Did you get a chance to see Canine Torque, Faith?
No, I didn't. And I was so sad. But my husband came with me. This was his first expo.
That's cool.
And so I saw that he was there, or she was there somewhere. And I was trying to figure out where they were. But no, I didn't get the chance.
What was his take on all this moving machinery? Like it's always good to hear when you hear something at the first time at the show. What was his take on all of this?
Oh, it's hilarious. Because I talk about it all the time, and obviously, and he sees the pictures don't do that place justice.
Right.
He has no concept. I'm telling him about it over and over and over, and all the stuff to anticipate it, and just he's like trying to plan stuff afterwards in California. I'm like, no. Like, we're gonna be so fried.
Yeah.
Like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay. And so he walks in, and just his face, he's like, he had like a couple places mapped out that he wanted to see, because he was only there for half the time because he had to head back home. He was there for half the time. He's like, I want to see, and it was like all the big ones, and they're never close. They're always gapped out. And so he's like, well, I just want to see all the big ones. And I'm like, that's cute. I'm like, that's a tall order.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude. And so it was so funny, because we were like running around, and just like you said, people are like, Faith. We're like, oh, Harry. And then they're like, is this your husband? Yeah. And so it was like, we only made it so far, which he ended up seeing everything that he wanted to, but it was hilarious, because by the end of it, he's like, I'm not going to lie. Every time you talked about this, I just pictured like 500 helicopter nerds in a room somewhere, and I did not. This was totally different caliber, and I'm like, yeah. So,
people hugging him that he doesn't even know. Hey man, I love you. Like, whoa, 3 feet space here. Come on now.
So did we convert him to the helicopter world?
Is he over on the dark side? Did he join us?
Oh, he was talking to salesmen I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes.
I'm like, he was cracking me up. He's like, well, I really think it'd be best if we got an MD, and I'm like, yeah, me too, pal.
Yeah. Good for him.
He was killing me.
He bid it all the way in. Good job.
He kept asking, he's like, you get an extra ticket every year, right? And I was like, I think we can swing that. I think we'll be able to make that happen.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been tainted for sure.
Right on. Well played.
The heli nerd question of the night. The heli nerd, because I know I still like it's. So I coach football here locally in my little town that I live in. It's always funny because every time one of the athletes comes up and they hear something, he goes, "Hey, Coach Val, what is that?" And it's like, I know what's flying around me. I can kind of tell right away. But what's the aircraft that when you hear it spool up, firing, and it's chopping over top, that you want to go see it fly for you?
I can identify, because we only have so many in our fleet, there's certain ones, if it flies over the building, I could tell you if it's an L or a 407. I would say something I would really love to see close up, like running or go flying, and I haven't had the chance to, is a K-Max. I think I said that at the last one too, because it's just so foreign looking compared to everything else. And they had one at, I don't remember if it was, I think it was Atlanta. Maybe it was Dallas. It was Dallas or Atlanta. They had one, and it looked like a big Colorado paint scheme. I don't know if y'all remember that one that took off. That one was and that's the first time I've ever seen one in person and actually operating. And so that was, I was just in awe. That thing is so cool looking. Looks crazy.
Yeah.
The inverted cone and two big rotors over top there. It's where I got hired from was one of their, it was like the 50th anniversary of the company that there was one of the umbrellas there, and there's a K-Max there that spooled up, and I was just like, pick my jaw up off the floor.
That's so cool.
I wouldn't be able to identify the sound of it because I'm not around it, but I just was like, my jaw was on the floor. And it was funny too, because I think everyone else was kind of fangirling with me, like when it fired up.
Right.
Because if you don't live in California or an area where they do utility work, you're not really going to be exposed to that. So like everybody had like phones, GoPros, cameras. It was just like paparazzi on this thing. It was pretty cool.
I think the one you're talking about there, that's the group out in Denver, just outside Denver. That's HeliCASTS. I know exactly who they are. It's awesome machine. So cool. And to put that big C on the side of it, right on the tail boom. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, it was slick looking.
John, you got some stick talk here. What's the one you'd go running to the window and kind of like smash your face up and see it?
Man, it's funny because I've got two boys in the house, and you'd think that they'd be pushing me out of the way, but I hear a helicopter come over and
move.
I pretty much push them to the ground. I'm like, get out of my way. I want to go see it. I flew H-125s, and you just get accustomed to hearing the sound. You know what it is. I hear a 125 and I want to run outside because I want to see which one of my friends it is. That we live in an area that's kind of an area of transit for helicopters. So a lot of my friends transit the area, and they'll hit the house. They'll orbit the house a couple times as they cruise through. So I always run out there to see who it is. So it's the 125, but bigger than that is the Osprey, the V-22. We live San Diego, between kind of San Diego and now I'm drawing a blank. The Marine Corps station out in the desert. Anyways, they go back and forth between the two of those. So they go through once every month or so. And you can tell there's such a deep bass off the rotor system from those things. So I'll run out there and check those things out. Love those things.
Nice.
How about you? The Vertical MRO podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired.
I'm a big wop wop guy. I would probably I'm still stunned at watching Chinooks fly. It's to me that's an intimidating sound, especially when that bad boy gets tilted the right way. And someone told me, and I had to look it up. That's one of the fastest helicopters outside of the Osprey in the air. And I was like, no, that thing's a big tank. It's an elephant, right? But I guess if you think about the dynamics of how it flies, it makes sense to me. That's the one I'd be like, I'd probably put my head through a couple of panes of glass just to see who's out of it.
Yeah, we just interviewed the author of Razor 03. His name's Alan Mack. And he talked about the operational capabilities of that ship in Afghanistan. So with the altitudes and the temperatures they were operating in, that was the only aircraft that could do what they needed it to do. The Blackhawks couldn't accomplish the missions, at least at the highest elevations. So it was really neat to hear about that. So yeah, I agree with you there.
I think every one of us that's a heli nerd still has that poster of that famous one where it's kind of it's pulling something along the ice, and it looks like a great big generator, and the things like the rotor blades are like 5 or 6 feet off the tip of the ice, and it's just pulling it alongside of us. I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think one of the other ones too that's like a big staple, especially having a Bell background, are the 47s.
Yes.
Like, mad respect to people out there who keep them things running. Those things are so cool to see in action.
Yep.
Did you see LA City Fire's 47 at the show?
Yeah, I took a bunch of pictures of it.
Yeah,
that thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I actually, at my A&P school, they had 3 of those for us to tinker on too. And they were like, realistically, you're not going to be messing with these more than likely, but it is really cool. Cornerstone in aviation. So
yeah, absolutely.
Every time there's an operator that flies around here, because where I live, there's it's a high mosquito population. So a lot of these sprayers still fly those 47s kicking around. Like, oh, look at the MASH helicopter. I'm like, yeah, that's it.
A MASH.
Right? So switching hats here. I know, thanks for kind of detailing out that. That was awesome. But going as an influencer, you kind of spoke about it earlier here. What was that aha moment? Like, okay, this, I found my niche to kind of get this going as well too. You mentioned it still with the Verticon ambassadorship there, but just like, okay, this is catching some traction now. What was that like for you to kind of have that recognition and both just for the people that are wanting to do it and the people who are, like you say, high-fiving you in the aisles when you try to get to an appointment or a meeting?
It's really cool to see it come full circle. Because when I first started doing this, I was like, okay, what can I post? What can I post? What, will people find interesting? What will they not find interesting? And what's going to kick off? And so it's funny because my husband's a big car guy and he'll sit for hours and watch YouTube videos and he'll let it run just for background noise at the house on the TV and, big car enthusiast. He's like, is there anything like this for helicopters? And I'm like, are you talking about maintenance, like watching rebuilds and that kind of thing? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, heck no. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of liabilities and who owns a helicopter? You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot of operators because they're going to put it to work so we can make them money. And I said, it's pretty rare that somebody's going to, be the one working on their own helicopter if it's that big of a helicopter. And so he's like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. When I started making my videos, at first, I feel like there was a lot of guys that were like, what am I looking at? Because, unless you can see the helicopter in full span when I have the parts off of it, they're like, okay, that kind of looks like this or that, but, I don't know what I'm looking at or what's in her hands. And so they would read, some of the verbiage I would post below. And it started doing pretty good. It picked up. And I think at the time I had like 200 or 300 followers. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm just talking to these 200 or 300 people, but if they enjoy it, I enjoy it. So I was like, okay. And I was pouring a lot of time into it. And then it really kicked off with a handful of videos. And one of the videos got like 3 million views.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, people are actually watching now.
Yeah.
So it actually, when it hit the fan, so to speak, I realized it was a video. And I think I said this last time you guys interviewed me, but the tail rotor cowling was off. And I was changing a Thomas coupling. So I was spinning. And so I think a lot of people have never seen the inner workings of what makes a helicopter. And a lot of people were like, what in the hell am I looking at? I was like, okay, so maybe that is key, is showing in the system, not just what I'm doing on a bench. It was funny because a lot of people that come up to me that watch my videos, because I wasn't really sure who was watching them. I'm like, I anticipated it to be other people in the helicopter industry that maybe didn't work on Bell products, or maybe people that are in high school and are looking for something to do when they graduate and are trying to explore career opportunities. But I was floored that a lot of my people are prior service members. So a lot of them are people that are looking to exit the military and enter the civilian world. And a lot of them are pilots that want to understand their systems better, or maybe don't want to raise their hand and say, hey, like, why, why does this do this?
Yeah.
It's actually really funny too, because in my time as a female helicopter mechanic, I cannot tell you how often I'm pulled to the side and asked questions because they feel comfortable doing so. So I've had pilots, I've had people on the flight ops side. We even had, I won't say his name, but I've even had a CEO that owned the helicopter company ask me, like, pull me off to the side and be like, hey, like, can I ask you some questions? When other guys have worked there years before I have, but he just didn't want to feel like it was something he should already know. It's just funny that, I'm glad people feel comfortable and they don't feel like I'm going to make them feel small, because of course, that's why a lot of people don't want to answer or ask questions, is because they don't want to feel small. If my page can provide insight or anything like that, if it helps one person, it's worth it. I'm hopeful it's done that. But a lot of people, I was really happy to see the positive feedback, because I wasn't sure. You know how rules and regs are, and half of being an A&P, what they teach you is how to cover your behind, not even how to work on the damn thing. So I was really curious to see how the feedback was going to go. Like, you shouldn't be videoing that, or I would do it like this or whatever. I always try to include and keep as much factual information as I can. I don't post the go around or things that are, not the way that the book tells you to do it, because that's not how I want people to see me doing it. And that's not how I do it.
Kind of just goes back to what you said as far as your liabilities there too. It kind of goes right back into that hand, right? So, yeah.
I feel like the videos that do the best are the ones of me just explaining what this piece does in the system. Because I have done those videos before that are like 5 minutes long that showing other people how to do something. They're like, I'll lose people within like the first 30, 40 seconds. They're like, yep, slide to the next one. So I really feel like I've been able to and capture my audience between that 30 to a minute and 30-minute pocket. It's been really good. Like I said, I've had a lot of good feedback. I've had a lot of requests come in too, but sometimes it's luck of the draw on when I'll be doing that task. I feel like when I was the new guy, there was like a 2 solid months where all I did was pack floats. And I was like, yeah, this is the best time of my life.
Saw the high five, the dusty high five. That was a good one.
I just, and people would be like, oh, like next time you do this or that, record it for us. Sometimes that task wouldn't roll around for weeks or months or maybe even a year before I did it again. Because at the time I was working on a fleet. And so they would bounce me where they needed me. I wasn't taking or like sole proprietorship of one helicopter. It just depended on what was kind of being dealt that week. But yeah, so far so good. I've had really good and positive feedback. I've had requests. So far, of course, you're going to have the trolls on the internet. It just comes with it, unfortunately, which most of the time I'll just block or delete their comment. Or if I feel like if they want to really act like they have big pants, I'll pin their comment to the top and just let everybody else deal with it. Because I've got enough people that back me that I'm like, because I had one guy who said something. He's like, women will always just be a distraction in aviation. And I pinned it to the top and I'm like, you're probably gonna have to delete your account, but here you go, buddy.
let the community
nice cover, big pants. Okay, good call. Yeah, good one.
A little bit of street justice never hurts anybody.
That's right. Good for you. For you. That's pulling that Uno card. Here you go. This is on you.
Reverse draw 4.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well played. I love that. That's a great tactic. It's always interesting. You hear when especially when the outsiders kind of like when they think that this engine or this power plant or this transmission, the transmission is heavy. Don't get me wrong, but when you're talking like I know again, my experience where I came from was a lot of the Rolls 250 engines, and you hear these people like, wait, you can pull a helicopter engine out of it to work on it and just swap another one while it works. Like it's interesting to hear their point of view. Like, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, you got to think it's got to fly. It's got to be light.
One of the biggest videos that I think was really funny that really kicked off was chip detectors. So the metal chip detectors, because the car guys were like, why don't we have this on cars? So when my rear end's, tearing itself up or my engine's making metal, like, why is that not a thing? And I'm like, it's a safety for us, but it makes sense why it's there. And a lot of people are just amazed that exists because it's so foreign to them.
It's funny because it's not even like it's a high tech or expensive piece of technology. Why doesn't that exist in other industries?
For some people, it's definitely different, like between that and usually for helicopters, it's the blades. They have a lot of questions about the blades. They understand, just like a car, the engine drives the transmission and what the transmission's there to do, but it's everything else past that point and up they got questions about.
Your Jesus nut explained it perfectly there. But I saw that video and it's I've tried to tell that. I got one in my office and it's off of Huey. And everybody that comes over, my buddies that come over, like, what is this? I'm like, that's a Jesus nut. Why do you call it Jesus nuts?
Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
Because if you lose it, you're meeting them. That's just, it's kind of the standard.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like that's the most commented thing on all my videos too. Anytime I'm holding anything, it could be like a hydraulic pump, it could be like the squirrel cage, a Tom's coupling, whatever. They're like, that's the Jesus nut. And I'm like, well, technically everything on this is a Jesus nut, but that's not the Jesus nut.
This is the Jesus nut.
Right.
I had posted a video on my social media here about auto rotation. And there was a UH-1N that was doing it. It was like, oh, that's CGI. I'm like, no, that's how these people get trained. Like, you don't understand. Well, so if the engine fails, I'm like, you still have things turning above you that catch air.
Yeah.
And they could not get over the fact that this thing auto rotated down and skid on the skids the way it should have. Like it's so I'm hoping that this, I mean, what you're showing everybody here is the right direction for these people to keep on learning and keep interested. because there are a lot of aviation nerds and heli nerds that aren't a part of our industry, but they'll go running out to an airfield to see what's flying. So keep up the good work that way.
Thanks.
On the topic of auto rotations, did you guys see the video that came out of Kauai about 3 weeks ago? That MD-500 that auto rotated the beach?
Yes.
Wow.
On a postage stamp of a beach. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the pilot did an amazing job.
Yeah, it's what I got tagged in that video like 10 times, and everyone's like, "What do you think? What do you think?" And I'm like, "They were able to walk away from it, so that was successful."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we just had flown a flight with Blue Hawaiian in that same area about a week prior to that incident. Being familiar with where they were flying, if that had happened 30 seconds prior, or maybe 30 seconds later, there would have been no beach. That area is very rugged. The terrain is there's nowhere you're going to auto that thing to where anybody's going to survive. So the fact that it happened there, man, thank God. That was a great video. Talk about showing folks how an auto rotation is successful right here. You know, obviously when you see the photos of the aircraft, it's torn up, but they survived. You know,
to use Faith's words there, he had some big pants on him that day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like people that aren't in the aviation industry, they don't understand, you know, a lot of what you learn trying to get your private pilot. It's not how to fly it. It's emergency procedures. It's what to do if this X, Y, and Z happens. And so, you know, a lot of people don't realize that in fixed wing, a lot of times you have a lot more time to think about what you're going to do. And you can even talk through it at times, you know, depending on what aircraft you're in. But yeah, my husband, it was really hard for him to wrap around what an auto rotation was. Basically, like if you're on the highway and your car just dies, it's not like it's just going to come to a screeching halt. Like you still have time to coast. And so basically you're using what's left to make the most of it.
That's a great analogy.
And he was just like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's not like you're, you know, a lawn dart, but you do have a lot less time than what other guys do. So you really, I said, you know, a lot of what you're learning is not how to fly it. It's emergency procedures for how you have to fly it if something like that happens.
And a good teacher teaching it like yourself, right? A good teacher teaching it.
Yeah, that muscle memory has got to be in place for an auto rotation. You know, if your engine's out, you can't sit and process and think through it. Like you said, it's got to be an instant reaction, you know, otherwise it's not going to work.
In my own learning, I think I was telling you this, John, at the expo, that I'm starting to get into emergency procedures. And I've been in helicopters when they've done them a million times, because usually the last thing you do after track and balance is shoot an auto to make sure you don't have to adjust the auto rotation RPM. And so I'm like, you know, I'm used to it because I always have to be in it, and I usually have the box and I'm up front. But when the pilot that's got, you know, however many 1,000 hours is doing it, I'm like, yeah, he's got it. It doesn't freak me out. But then when you're asking me to do it and where I'm at and in my capabilities, it was funny because my instructor's like, all right, like we're going to do a hover auto. And he's like, all right, he demonstrated a couple times. And so he's like, all right, he's like, so I want you to say 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to execute it. And I'm like, yep. Mind you, my knuckles are like white at this point. And he's like, okay, he's like 3. And I'm like 3, 2, 1. Didn't do it. We're just hovering there. And he's like, you got it? I'm like, yeah, I got it. 3, 2, 1. Still didn't do it. I'm like, you want to demonstrate this just a couple more times? He's like, yeah, you're overthinking it. I'm like, I know I am. And we're not that far from the ground, but it's just one of those things. It's a mental block. But
you want to create the argument. Is it on 1 or just before 1? Is like, you need to clarify this.
Oh, look, we're out of time. We got to go back. See you later. You know, I think the best piece of advice I ever got from my CFI was to trust the process. Because I remember going through some auto rotations was part of it. The 180 auto was really difficult. And I'm like, man, I'm never going to get this. It seems for whatever the thing is, I'm having a hard time doing it. He said, trust the process. It'll click. And it did, you know, and it seemed hard to just trust the process in the moment, but it worked out. So that's my advice to folks that are thinking, is this ever going to work? It will.
You guys are flyers there. I'm on the maintenance side of the world, where I had an incident where a guy was he was hesitating. He was kind of wondering whether it was going to kind of be able to put a drive shaft in without kind of affecting it to the transmission stuff. I go, service instruction manual states it all right there. And he was kind of like what you said earlier. He was stubborn to kind of really learn a new version of what was out there, but it was still proficient. And then once he figured it out, he called up and he said, oh man, thanks a lot. He called me and called my partner there at the company there. And he spoke. He goes, oh, thanks for kind of walking me through this, guys. I'm like, it was all in black and white on your computer screen. We just sent it all to you. It's you know, like to your point there, John, follow the process and shit works.
Yep, for sure. I think it's cool anytime you see mechanics that are not just wrenching on stuff, but they're flying too. I always thought, man, how hard would it be to work on it all the time, but not get to enjoy the benefits of the cool part? Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not the cool part. A part of the cool part is flying, right? Cool that you're doing both sides of that.
Yeah. And like I said, kudos to you for kind of teaching the right way, teaching a positive way on it, both not on like in your instruction classes there, but also on your social media. So like I said, it was as soon as I started following, it was like a hook. I was like, all right, we're going to get along just fine. This is great. This is some good click stuff. So I appreciate that. I know like in one of the other podcasts you mentioned you were volunteering over at the Gateway Youth Group. Is that still something you're doing on a personal side? Do you have time for that anymore?
Yes, that's actually where I'm at right now.
You want to just talk about it just for just a couple minutes here and just kind of let us know what you're doing there and what's happening?
The Gateway Youth Aeronautical Foundation is a nonprofit located here in St. Louis, Missouri that aims at getting kids interested in aviation. Right now, it's specific to flight. However, we do have a lot of mentorship between different niche fields that are also in aviation. We have a location here at Creve Coeur Airport. It's not too far from St. Louis. I'd say probably about 30 minutes or so. But it's kind of a hidden gem, this airport. The foundation itself, we have a couple different outreach programs, one of which is we have a F4 cockpit that is actually restored in its entirety. So it's been cut. It's probably about 2/3 of the F4. It's just the cockpit portion, and it's been built onto a transport trailer. So we can actually trailer it to and from events. So we get a lot of interest by kids wanting to climb up in it and take a picture and getting to poke around in the buttons, and they're not hurting anything. So we'll have the canopy opened up, and it's completely painted as if it was to be in its time. And so it's a really cool thing to have, and the kids really get a kick out of it. We also have a flight simulator lab. So we have 7 active simulators, 5 of which are VR, and they are set up for Microsoft Flight. And so the kiddos can get on there and practice flying. We also have a DCS, so a digital combat system, so they can practice flying that. And then we have one set up for rotorcraft as well. So what we do is we actually just started in 2022 offering our Intro to Flight program. So kids can come for free. They can sign up for our course. It's 8 weeks long on Saturdays. It's just 2 hours long. They can come in and get instruction from real flight instructors on weather, instrumentation, how to do touch and goes, different air surfaces. They learn about this for about 2 hours. At the end, when they graduate, we have actually got a contract with one of the local flight schools here on the airfield. So every kid that does well and excels in our program and gets a certificate at the end, we give them a $500 scholarship to that local flight school. We've had a really great return on this. I think we did the numbers the other day. Like 78 kids have gone through. 25 have gone on. And then we've got, I think, 5 that now have their private pilot. The age is 14 to 25. So we've got a really big range because we have some of those kiddos that are just hell-bent on getting into aviation, and kudos to their parents for letting them sign up for that kind of thing. But we also want to encompass people that maybe are interested. Maybe they're already in the workforce. Maybe it's not in aviation, but they're thinking about making that change. So between the Flight Sim Lab, the F4, and then we also have the TH-67 Creek, which is basically a Army Jet Ranger. So that is how the founder found me. He said, hey, I've got this Jet Ranger. We got it through a Army surplus auction. We went ahead and put a bid on it, and we got it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it now because I'm not an AMP.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. He said, how about this? If you help me fix this up, we'll get you some flight training in it. We'll try to get you squared away so you can be the one to fly it into like Girls in Aviation Day here in St. Louis and
That's cool.
some of the Girl Scout events and things like that. So you can represent that side of the house as well. It's been really great. I've been doing it now I've been here for a full calendar year because that's when they got the helicopter. Since then, I've actually become VP of the nonprofit. And so me and the founder work really closely together. We schedule STEM events all the time, trying to schedule with local high schools. So balancing that between normal work and then also the consulting gig. And then I'm trying to get my IA at the beginning of April. I'm like, just done.
And you're in pilot school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm fried. Everybody's always like, oh, do you want to? I'm like, the answer is not right now.
What's really in that plastic cup you're drinking there, Faith? Come on now.
It's water because I have a meeting and I have to be. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, my husband's thank God he's go too, and he knew when he married. But
that's spectacular.
What's been the biggest challenge working on the aircraft as you've restored it?
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
That one's actually been pretty well the same. I mean, it's standard category aircraft. The only main differences between it are the instrument panel. It's got like a law enforcement instrument panel, so it's huge because they were usually used for like IFR trainers, so they had double of everything. And then the fuel tank is very bizarre in it too, because a traditional Jet Ranger, you'll know that the back seat, usually your seat back where you sit, is the fuel tank. But the Army wanted to put something in it called an observer seat. So right behind the pilot, they actually cut the fuel tank around the observer. So it's like a crash fuel resistant seat, essentially. So the biggest and weirdest thing has been the fuel tank. But everything else, like the engine, the drivetrain, everything, it's basically a Jet Ranger.
Yep.
Well, that's cool.
Yep. Does it still have the orange and white paint schemes on it when you guys got it?
Yep. That's why her nickname is Clementine. So that's why we call
you
her
spoke
Clementine.
about Clementine. That's right. Yeah. I've probably seen her because I've spent my time at Fort Rucker. I've probably high-fived her once or twice.
There's been so many people too. They see it and they're like, that aircraft's in my logbook. Like, can I come see it? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny how many people recognize it right away. But yeah, that guy also owns the founder also owns a Kiowa, a Charlie model. So I actually have been restoring it and I'm getting close. I got the airframe squared away and we're about to string and balance the head probably next week. So that's being pretty close to return to service. Always busy. Keeping
the old birds up. Faith, like I said, like it's like you're not busy enough all of a sudden. Like, let's go restore a couple of helicopters. Like, seriously.
Yeah, 2 random questions and I'll stop interrupting. What's your favorite system to work on and what's your least favorite system to work on?
Oh, loaded.
My favorite system to work on, anything drivetrain related. I like big stuff, like a freewheeling unit change. So I actually get my hands in there. Everything has to come off. It's very involved. Drivetrain components. My all-time favorite thing to do is track and balance. It's an acquired taste for some folks.
So you got a lot of patience.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a challenge. That's why I really like it. But once you're good at it, you become the go-to person kind of a deal. When I started working at Heli Inc., they kind of asked me, they're like, okay, what do you want like your niche to be? Like, we have avionics guys, we have sheet metal guys. Like, when we're down and we have downtime, what do you want to kind of be your thing? And I was like, well, what does everyone not like to do? So maybe I could get good at that. That's not fuel systems, because that's my least favorite.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was like, well, and they were like, well, probably track and balance, because, we have different systems, we have different helicopters, and each system on each helicopter can have a different setup or different inputs. So that quickly became my thing, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, least favorite is going to be fuel and packing floats, which I actually got pretty good at packing floats, so I could knock it out. But that's what sucked, is not only did I get that job because I was lower on the totem pole, but then I got good at it. So then it was like, oh, well, just have her and him, like they can knock out a whole sked gear in like 2-3 hours, when it takes some guys a whole day. And I'm like, no, I'm supposed to do my time. I did my time.
How many uniforms have you ruined with the fuel?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, another shameless plug, Miller's jet fuel wash.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
Right now, I think it's just a hand scrub or a hand wash. But it takes the smell, at least out of your skin, and it doesn't leave residue or anything. I think he's trying to come up with a laundry detergent as well, which would be Plug, if he could, because that's the worst part. I mean, I literally, as soon as I would walk in the house, Junior didn't know what that's my husband. Junior didn't know what jet fuel smell was like until I started coming home. And he's like, I don't know what you worked on today, but that's not oil. It's not. I'm like, it's not oil.
Sticks to the paint.
And one of the awesome things about having long hair is your hair absorbs oil.
Oh.
And jet fuel is oil based. So they would laugh, but I would legit, like, it'd be like 80 degrees outside. And I would put up my hoodie and like cinch down the hood so none of those strands were out. And like,
oh, you'd see Faith out in the tarmac with one of those hair nets like you wear in the cooker. It's just all plastic or something like that. You going for a dye or something there? What's going on?
I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'll take a Walmart bag like an old lady that's got a perm on. I'll wrap that up.
That's so good.
That's funny.
Faith, we can't thank you enough for coming on today with our show here. We're just we're just with everything that you're doing with the line maintenance, the pre-buys, the volunteering, the representing Verticon, everything. Like I said, you're a very, very positive force, and I can't thank you enough for being that way, especially in our industry. So keep doing what you're doing because you're doing the good thing for sure.
Your positivity and your passion for aviation is infectious. And when you talk about recruitment, you are probably single-handedly responsible for dealing with a recruitment issue just through your social media and what you're doing in there. So thank you for that, and admire all the efforts you've got going there. Well done.
Yeah, we're fans. We're going to give you a high five there.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Anytime you guys want someone on the show or just need some filler, let me know. I love this kind of thing, and being able to talk to like-minded people, that's my kind of place to be. So
I don't know if you want to be like-minded like John and myself, but we get it. We get it.
And we're gonna drag you into the co-host seat here from time to time.
That's right. You're gonna be.
I'm down.
Yeah. Add one more thing to your plate.
Yeah.
I'm down. Like I said, right now I can do it on a whim. Like, this was perfect. And you guys are like, oh yeah, do you want to jump on? Yeah, absolutely. But some weeks I'm like, which way is up and down? Because I was supposed to be somewhere 20 minutes ago, and but yeah.
Well, thank Junior for us, and again, we're going to pressure him to join the helicopter industry.
Yeah, he's going to turn it. We're going to convert him to a heli nerd. I promise. I'm going to walk up to him next time I see him. I hope it's your husband when I see him. I'm just like, hey, bro. I'm going to give him a big hug. And he's like, who the hell is this guy?
Dude, it was funny right after Expo. So he works a crazy schedule. He works at General Motors, and he was off for a couple weeks. And it was so funny because I came home and all of a sudden he had a drone. He went out and bought a drone, and I'm like, that's the first step. Yeah. I'm like, so he's like, this is cool, but he's like, I want to fly it. I don't want to fly it with a remote. I want to be the one flying it. I'm like, it's a sickness. I'm telling you. I'm like,
once you're hooked, you can't get off it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
The first hit's free. Afterwards, you pay.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, I've said this once and I'll say it 1,000 times. There's only one way out of helicopters.
Blood in, blood out.
Blood in, blood out. It's kind of like the mafia, right? You can't talk about it.
Right. Yep.
Last question before we shut her down here. It's probably the most important part of the show. Does pineapple belong on pizza? Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Good for you. Thank you. Faith restored.
Oh, no.
Faith restored.
No, I've never. Yeah, no. Don't get me wrong. Being from St. Louis, if you've had Emo's Pizza, I know Emo's gets like the reputation. Go try Stefanina's. Shameless plug. And if y'all hook me up with that Wacky Wednesday deal, Emo's and Stefanina's, if you're listening.
Yeah.
But that pizza is awesome. My husband's from Chicago, though.
So
deep dish has a place in my heart.
I do love deep dish.
Give one more shameless plug. Give one more shameless plug to all your social media feeds there too, please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So How to Helicopter. I am on, as of right now, I'm on TikTok and on Instagram. I've started backlogging some stuff to YouTube Shorts. So I don't know how many people really watch YouTube Shorts, but a lot of my friends and family have been saying, hey, there's a lot of YouTube people out there, and that's a really big platform as well. So we're going to try it and see how it goes. So I've been backlogging stuff when I can remember to there.
Us old guys are on those YouTube platforms. I get it.
I like YouTube, but my videos are 60 seconds long. So I don't know how much they can take on a 60-second short if it was to just go. So, but yeah, those are the big ones that I use are TikTok and Instagram. We'll see how YouTube goes, but that's primarily what I use.
Perfect.
So
being that you're so plugged into the social media world with TikTok, what's going to happen, you think, with that network? Not political, all political aside, what do you envision and what do you see happening with that network?
Right now, Facebook and Instagram both utilize Reels. So, I mean, if it goes away, something's going to take its place, or somebody else is going to try to pick something up similar. And I don't know if you guys, just in the last week, I didn't even know it was a thing. Did you know Instagram has something called Threads?
Yep.
Yeah, but I don't.
It's like,
I know it's there, but I don't know what it is.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Twitter for Instagram.
Wait,
and so
why,
the other day,
why is the oldest guy in the podcast nodding? Yeah.
Because I got an invite. Somebody's like, so it's such and such invited you to Threads. I'm like, I feel old. I'm like, what the hell's a thread? And so I'm like trying to figure it out. And I'm like looking and I'm like, this is basically Twitter, which I had a Twitter once upon a time. I couldn't even tell you the password or where it's at anymore because I don't really use it. But yeah, I have a feeling somebody else is going to pick that up, which it seems like Facebook and Instagram are already trying to mimic that. Just, aimlessly scrolling through videos where you don't have to really search a topic and it'll kind of generate stuff for you. Even if it did go away, change its name, whatever be, something else is going to end up taking its place. I mean, Vine. I love Vine. I don't know if you guys even remember Vine.
Yep, I do.
Those are the good old days.
Yeah.
Vine was awesome.
Back in my day when Vine used to be a thing.
I started with MySpace. MySpace was where it was at.
Whoa.
Yep.
Or AOL chat. Remember that?
AOL chat.
I had a Hotmail. I had a Hotmail that I used to use, but yeah, no, I didn't have the AOL chat.
Yeah, so
I'm trying to think. There's one famous movie line. It's like this OCD that I have where it kicks in. I got to go update my LinkedIn account or something like that. So,
I remember dialing in, the old dial-up modem for AOL.
Oh boy.
So, anyways.
Oh boy.
Get out of that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we're aging ourselves here now. Like it's time to end the show.
Yeah. Thank you, Faith.
Well, Faith, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you more on this stuff and on this side of it. And I can't tell you again, keep doing what you're doing there on behalf of myself and John. We'd like to thanks again for coming on to the show and kind of giving us a snapshot of what your world consists of. I think you just, you probably need a little more time in it.
Not enough time is being spent as it is.
Good night.
You need like 28 hours a day at least.
You'd fill all 28 and a half of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're go for sure. But
awesome.
Yeah, I thank you guys so much for having me. Like I said, I love talking with like-minded people to have a good conversation about this kind of stuff because this brings exposure to more people and a bigger audience. And so, maybe they'll even see what it takes to get their A&P or know someone that is thinking about it and they can reference them to somebody and say, hey, she said something called an A&P is the cert you got to have. And so as many people as we can inspire, whether it be for, flying, fixing, air traffic controlling, whatever it may be, we need the people.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on my platform and to speak to you guys. I appreciate it.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
The Vertical MRO podcast is powered by Vertical Magazine, the rotorcraft industry's #1 trusted multimedia resource. Visit Vertical Mag Media on YouTube to gain access to exclusive videos featuring operators in the field and more unique content from the pages of Vertical. Subscribe today to stay informed and inspired.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
So as we come in for our final landing with today's maintenance journey with Faith Ortega, remember that keeping your helicopters in top-notch condition not only ensures safe skies, but also fosters a culture of excellence in aviation. From tip to rotor to tail, every component plays a crucial role in the symphony of flight. So whether you're tightening a bolt or conducting a comprehensive inspection, embrace the responsibility and privilege of safeguarding the skies. Until next time, keep soaring, keep maintaining, and keep the rotor turning smoothly. Thanks for letting us, the HeliCASTS team, into your world. Blue skies and safe flights to all. Val, over and out.
This has been the Vertical MRO Podcast. Join us next time for another edition of the Vertical MRO podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.